Whenever you want to sketch, if it is in your sketchbook just for fun, or when you want to build a complete painting, chances are that you immediately grab a pencil or charcoal. But you can also start sketching with paint and brushes. And that has many benefits, and besides it's fun, and we all like fun, so let's have a look. You see, this is a white canvas and I've already used it for another video, but I'll just go over it with paint, and that's the whole principle. With paint it is so easy, especially with acrylics, to just cover the previous layers, and that's why sketching with paint is fun. Just take some black paint and I mix some white paint through it, so I can make a light gray color. Because I don't want to start sketching with black. That's difficult to cover later on. Now, with sketching you can do whatever you like. You can just use the paint straight out of the tube and you can start sketching like this. And sketching is just always a matter of finding some reference points, something to hold on to in a later stage. You just try to find some spots that you can use later on. And you see, I just jump in. I don't think too much, and I will adjust my sketch later on, because I will make tons of mistakes. That's normal. That's in every sketch. You have to jump into it and you have to adjust your mistakes. And when you adjust your mistakes and you go over it and you check, then your sketch will get better and better. So now I did it with reasonably thick paint, so this is not diluted with water or something, and I put on some fairly rough strokes, you see, so I don't mind about all that stuff. I just throw myself in and I'll see. Also, you can dilute your paint a little bit with water if you like. Some people like thicker paint, some people like more diluted paint. It's all possible, and as you can see, it's very easy to make big shapes with paint. And you just can make large strokes like this. And at this stage you don't want to fill in all the details, the eyes, etc. No, you want to do the great outlines. And another benefit is, in the sketching process, it is very important that you keep enough distance all the time to look from a distance to your painting to see if the proportions are right compared to your photograph. And if you stand like this, you can't see it. You're way too close, you can't see all that kind of stuff. And with a brush, if you hold it a little bit like this, you can paint from a distance. I stand an arm's length plus the length of the brush from my painting. So I keep a clear overview of the total. I'm not going to be too precise about this, it's just a demonstration. But if I want to adjust and I say, oh, I want to paint his hair in here, I also can work in planes, as you can see. So I can do something like this. So I make a plane for this dark part of his hair, and I can as well immediately start putting in shadow planes. You see, these shapes, these shadow shapes, are shapes, and you can use them to build your sketch. But don't do it like this. This is just an example. First make sure that the outlines are correct, of course, and then start going inside the head and place shapes. Also, most of the times it's easy with portraits, for instance, to place guidelines. So the middle of the face, for instance, if it is like this, I just put it in with paint, and then I can say, okay, here is an eyebrow line and here's the eye line. Here I can indicate the nose, for instance, the lips, you see, so a lip line. You can do whatever you like. So that's another benefit, that you can make these areas very quickly. Also, for very dark parts, you can say, oh, okay, I just want to add a dark part already a little bit to just put in this shape. That's all possible. Whenever I make mistakes, I just adjust it. Put white paint on my brush and I just try to correct my mistakes like this. You see, I can reshape all the forms that I see very easily. It's like molding your picture, and that's what I personally like so much about sketching with paint. It's a totally different experience. But I also like pencil and charcoal. It's not that it's bad to sketch with pencil or charcoal, it's different. If I want to put on here a line like this and a line like this, And if I want to have a little bit diluted paint, not too much diluted, a little bit like this, just to get some reference points for myself, that works fantastic. And also this canvas I had already used for another video. You can see I can just cover these colors with white paint. No problem at all. Another benefit, of course, when you draw with a pencil, you have these very sharp, precise lines. But when sketching with paint, I can very easily put in large areas of paint, as you see, because I just grab a bigger brush. And when I say, okay, I want to sketch like this, the outline, I do this with a big brush, like this. Now I'm going to run out of my mixture. But you see, that's all possible. You can do all kinds of stuff. It's great. It's a sort of intuitive. When you start sketching with paint, it isn't intuitive. It may feel a little bit strange. But when you do this more often, you will get that experience, that it is a very, very nice way to build your paintings. And especially with acrylics, I said it before, but you can go over it so fast that it doesn't matter what you do, you can adjust everything very fast. Especially in the sketching phase, it's really fantastic. Acrylics are such a great paint for sketching, I think. Well, and then I can adjust some things, and well, maybe some places maybe I put in some darker values. But you get the idea. Now I also want to show you another fantastic thing, sketching on a gray canvas. The benefits are endlessly. I will show you. Now I have to make my gray paint for sketching, of course, a little bit darker because I already have a gray background. But what I also immediately like to do, because I already told, I make a lot of mistakes, only mistakes, and I adjust my mistakes until it is going to look a little bit right. What I wanted to say, I also make a color to erase my mistakes. So a lighter gray in the same color as the toned ground, so something like this. Always keep in mind, acrylics dry a little bit darker than what you have on your palette. So you see, this is a little bit lighter, maybe it dries exactly the same as the background. Now the fun begins again, so I'll grab my brush and I just start sketching. Preferably you work from global to specific. So when your outlines are correct, you start painting inside the head, the features and that kind of stuff. But let us say these are the great outlines. Let us pretend that they are correct. Now the fun starts, because I can start adding darker paint at places where I like. So again, the hair, for instance, and again, here is a shadow part, and as well I can make that shadow part, that eye socket, I can indicate it already here with the darker paint. So that is nice, you see, that's very easy to do. And the fun part is I now sketch on a gray canvas board, so I can put in dark parts if I like, but I also can add lighter parts. For instance, here are some very light parts. I just can make my paint a little bit lighter, like this, just for an indication for me later on to say, okay, this is the shape that's gonna be a little bit light. And you see what it does. You can do this, and again, I just have to do it very roughly because I want to make a fast-paced video in this instance. But you see, and what happens is when you put in all the lighter parts, you can cover them easily later on with light paint. When I use a pencil and I sketch this form, for instance like this, that's more difficult to cover than my white paint. But also, you see, on a gray canvas board, you immediately start getting a three-dimensional feeling. You see? Well, just go on like this and your painting will evolve, but then go on just on base of a good sketch. I didn't take the time to make a good sketch. Well, if this is helpful to you, please hit the like button. When I sketch with a pencil, for instance, then you see I can wipe it out with my finger. The graphite spreads, and that also happens when you go over it with paint. Maybe I want to paint over it with white or light color later on. If I add white and I go over this, see what happens? My white gets polluted. It isn't white anymore because of the graphite. So that's another benefit of sketching with paint, with acrylic paint, because when the previous layer is dry, you cannot dissolve it in water. So you can go over it again. And in this video series, I paint a wine glass and I start off by sketching with paint. It's a real-time tutorial, I don't speed up and I don't cut things out. Go on and watch that video, you can see it in action.